Hello and welcome. This is Matthew Podboysaki, and today I'm going to cover some very basics with using TypeSpec, which recently hit RC, and together with Copilot so that we can implement something that's well known, for example, GeoJSON. So let's go ahead and see the actual spec. So the actual spec here is currently in draft, and it has all of the information about the overall status, but also everything in it. So what's really nice is that we can use Visual Studio code in this particular instance to go over everything that's in the GeoJSON. So let's go back over to our handy dandy little VS Code here. And what we can do is, if you notice around here, we can add some context to our particular thing. So in this particular instance, we have our little demo file here, but we can also reference and get a web page. So we can say to Copilot, hey, get me this information from this particular RFC, and let's spit out some code here. So let's go ahead and try a little thought experiment here in VS Code, where I can say, for getting all of your previous knowledge of GeoJSON, let's describe the GeoJSON, let's call it the GeoJSON schema as per the RFC documents. What are the basic shapes inside GeoJSON? All right. So we can, once again, it's going to ask if it can go and fetch that web page for me. And so what it's telling me is that it has point, multi-point, line string, polygon, multi-polygon, and geometry collection. And then as well as it has the feature and feature collections. Now, let's go ahead and ask if we can implement that in TypeSpec. I have a quick little thing of GitHub Copilot instructions. If you do not have them of yourself, you should highly recommend that you do, where you can tell specifically the GitHub Copilots of your code preferences, as it were, such as using triple slashes for documentation, where you should go for versioning, and so on and so forth. So in this particular case, we're saying always go out and get the latest and greatest TypeSpec, and so on and so forth. So let's go and go back now to our demo, and let's ask Copilot, can we implement all of the features from GeoJSON as noted above in TypeSpec, and see what we get. All right, so what it's going to do is it's going to tell us that it needs these particular things of for point, multi-point, line, string, and so forth. So it's not together all the right information. So there's some things that we're going to have to fix here, unfortunately. But let's copy this out and see what it does. All right. So there's a number of things that is fundamentally wrong here. For example, we don't. No, oh, sorry. Let's get rid of that and let's try this again. And we don't really need anything JSON specific here. So problems ultimately are that it thinks that you can have an array and number are not necessarily great things. So let's fix that. In this particular case, I can say number is not a valid type, however, numeric is, for representing all numbers. Okay. And so, sure enough, it's going to tell me that it has, once again, some slight fixes. And let's just copy that out and paste that in. And okay, apparently it didn't copy out the right thing. Let's try that again. Copy. There we go. Okay. Now, the problem ultimately also is coordinates here. It seems to think that we can do an optional. Now, that's not quite true because it's an array. So with an array, you would have to either have a two-dimensional array, or you would have to have a three-dimensional, apologies, you would have to have an array with 2 elements or an array with 3 elements. So let's tell Copilot that it needs to fix that as well. Let's define a coordinate type here that is an alias to the coordinates property. Okay, let's do that first so we can kind of abstract out some of the pieces here. So we can get coordinate now is now part of its own thing. So let's just go and say, okay, great. Now, what we need to fix now are 2 more things. One is that this coordinates is still not correct. So what we can do there is we can say there are no such things as optional in arrays. However, you can have a union which states the array contains 2 items or 3 items. Alright, so now that fixes our particular thing where we can say it's either a two element or 3 element collection. So now the last thing that we would want to do is say, okay, it's got this properties. So really it could be anything. So let's fix that, and let's tell Copilot that it's a little wrong here. With the feature properties property, it is incorrect as record is not like TypeSpec, TypeScript rather, records with a key and type as generics parameters. Instead, only takes a single generic parameter as the element type. In addition, any is not a valid TypeSpec value, so let's use unknown. All right. So I know this was a lot to do that, but so TypeSpec only has a single generic parameter and any is not valid. So let's now take a look at what it fixed. So as you can see here, it is now a record unknown. So we can go copy and paste. Oops. Let's just fix the individual piece that changed, which was our feature in this particular case here. And so we don't have to fix everything. We can now show you that we have a fully specified GeoJSON. So this is here using the 4.0 model here, and eventually we got to the right pieces here. It just took us a little bit, as TypeSpec is still rather new, but also that it needs some help with that. And there are some things that we can probably do with our instructions or better train our own custom models. But this just gives you a general idea of the fact that you can work directly with GitHub Copilot on an existing spec. And sure enough, it can figure out some of these things. Obviously, it's not perfect, but it's definitely getting there. So thank you very much for your time today, and I hope you learned something about how we can model GeoJSON with our point, multi-point, line string, multi-line string, polygon, and so forth, using just GitHub Copilot, chat, reading some documentation, and just some back and forth on clarifications with Copilot. So thank you very much for your time, and I will catch you next time.